Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. This is Miss Najma Batool working as a lecturer in English at the Government Degree Girls College, Landhi number 3, Karachi, under the supervision of the Principal Professor Dr. Farah Sultana. Dear students, today's video aims at contributing to the worthy and noble cause of facilitating students in the continuation of their studies at the direction of our Honorable Education Minister Sindh, Said Ghani Saab, and our respectable Secretary College Education Department Sindh, Janab Rafiq Ahmed Bardo Sahab. Students, in order to catering to the educational needs of students during this time when you might not have an access to your teachers, a YouTube channel, Sindh College Lectures, has been launched where you can find all topics of all subjects. So don't forget to subscribe it. Students, today I have selected poetry section for intermediate part 1. Dear students, let's have a look at aims and objectives of teaching poetry to intermediate classes. Dear students, this lecture aims to achieve the following objectives. By the end of the video, you will be able to understand and derive pleasure from the given poem, to appreciate the beauty of the feeling, language and thought in the poem, to enjoy poet's appreciation of the theme he has selected, to travel into an all-new world of imagination for the freedom of expression. Specific objectives which are more important for students: to write poems appreciation in the form of central idea, to paraphrase and interpret the poem for the purpose of their examination and assessment, to comprehend the vocabulary and figurative speech used in the poem. Dear students, by the end of the poem, you should be able to write the summary and central idea in your own words. Dear students, let's begin with our today's topic, that is a poem Lucy Gray by William Wordsworth. It is the poem number 5, page 18 in your poetry book, named Selection from English Verse, Sindh Textbook Board Jamshoro. The poem is the part of class first year syllabus. Introduction to the poet. Lucy Gray has been composed by William Wordsworth. Students, the reason why I have selected this poem for today's lecture is that you have already studied the poem Daffodils in your matric classes, so you are well familiar with the kind of poet William Wordsworth is. So we know him as the poet of nature. Dear students, let's discuss something more about William Wordsworth. William Wordsworth was born in 1770 and passed away in 1850. He is counted among the leading romantic poets belonging to the Lake District. One of his remarkable publications is lyrical ballad. Lucy Gray was also included in it. Wordsworth is famous for his new poetic vision for the beauties of nature. Wordsworth is a poet and critic who has introduced a new conception of the poetic style, insisting that plain language of common speech was a fit medium for the poet, and that is the best way romantic poets can show their feelings through. Dear students, now we are well familiar that Wordsworth is one of the famous poets of the 18th century, an influential figure among the romantic poets whose romance primarily was for the nature. Almost all romantic poets, including Wordsworth, were strong proponents and admirers of Mother Nature. Therefore, throughout the literary works of Wordsworth, his inclinations towards natural objects like sun, moon, clouds, rain, trees, water streams, waterfalls, rivers, open fields, mountains and animals is prevalent. Students, now let's begin with the interpretation of the poem. The poet narrates a tragic and melancholic story of a young, innocent and obedient child whom he portrays being the part of nature, as beautiful as nature is, as fresh and radiant as natural beauty is. The incredible scenic beauty is spectacular and serene in the world Lucy lives in. Dear students, this poem is primarily a ballad written in 1799, an extreme end of the 18th century. Let's discuss what ballad is. A ballad is a folk story narrated in the form of a poetry, or a poem telling a folk story is a ballad. This poem tells a story of a girl, Lucy Gray, therefore it is a ballad. The tone of the poem is bleak and melancholic. The theme revolves around the nature. Wordsworth here paints the picture of Lucy's union with the nature through her tragic death, means she springs from the nature and thus returns to the mother nature after her tragic death. The setting of the poem is rural, and the kind of place where Lucy is as attractive as a rural area is. The abode or place where Lucy dwells is not an urban setting like city, London or Manchester are, but a wild moor, or we can say countryside or village, or an uncultivated mountainous area near the village. Students, on the screen you can well see the difference between rural area and an urban area. Now students, let's begin with the interpretation of stanza 1. Throughout first 3 stanzas, the poet introduces us to Lucy Gray, describes the sweetness of the child, and this is how readers come to know who Lucy is, where she lives, and how she appears to be. Stanza 1, often I had heard of Gray, and when I crossed the wild, I chanced to see at daybreak the solitary child. Students, often here refers to often more than one time, and wild refers to uncultivated area which has not been cultivated or which does not bear many crops. The poet says that although he had heard of Lucy Gray many times, but he had a chance to see Lucy Gray being solitary on moors when he was crossing fields. That was the beautiful scene he himself witnessed. Stanza 2. No mate, no comrade Lucy knew. She dwelt on a wild moor, the sweetest thing that ever grew beside a human door. Mate and comrade here refer to companions and friends. Dwelt means to live, and moor refers to uncultivated area, as it has already been mentioned. The poet mentions her being alone, having no age group mates or companions. We may infer an idea here that she is not playing with human friends because she is happy with the company of nature and natural objects. In line 3, the poet makes use of imagery of taste, and mentions her as the sweetest thing, which surely shows the poet's remarkable degree of admiration and praise for Lucy's beauty. Students, stanza 3 portrays a picture of Lucy with her lovely friends, and stanza 3 states, "You yet may spy the fawn at play, the hare upon the green, but the sweet face of Lucy Gray will never more be seen." Further, the poet mentions some pet animals, fawn and hare, as they had been shown in the picture too, both reflective of innocence and friendship. The animals, which are her friends, altogether makes a mesmerizing and enchanting picture in poet's heart, and it keeps resonating in his mind long after he had been away from that moorish area. This steady and serene canvas of nature is reflecting this memorable and immatchable beauty for the poet. The last 2 lines of stanza 3 are indicative of the tragic story, where the poet says, "But the sweet face of Lucy Gray will never more be seen." Why will she never be seen again? Where has Lucy gone? What has happened to her? Where has she disappeared? Let's read in stanza 4 that what actually happens to Lucy Gray, that she has disappeared. "Tonight will be a stormy night. You to the town must go, and take a lantern, child, to light your mother through the snow." Students, now from this stanza, the poet starts telling the actual story. Tonight will be a stormy night is a sentence delivered by Lucy's father. He says he asks her to go to the town to assist her mom with the lantern, as the mother has not taken lantern with her, and now snowstorm is expected, which might cause problems for the mother to be back from the town. Due to dark clouds, she might lose her way and she might face obstructions and troubles on her way back home. Now students, the question might spring in your mind that why doesn't father himself go to the town? Being adult, it would be easy for him, and it's difficult for the innocent child to go to the town. The real reason for this is that Lucy's father has a lot of work to do, and his work involves burdensome and heavy work which Lucy cannot do. He has to wind up a lot of grain and a lot of field work. Therefore, he prefers winding up his work, and he thinks Lucy might go to the town, as she might be habitual of and is used to of going to the town already. He thinks this is how the task would be divided. Students, now we move towards stanza 5. That father will I gladly do. It is scarcely afternoon. The minster clock had just struck 2, and yonder is the moon. Students, here in line 2, scarcely mean hardly, like it is hardly afternoon. The minster clock refers to the big clock fixed in the tower of the village church, which is meant for telling time to villagers. And yonder refers to the far, far away. In stanza 5, Lucy is shown to be an obedient, loving, responsible, and a bold child. She is not scared of storms and replies that father will I gladly do. She is ready to follow her father's instructions happily, but she thinks that big clock fixed on the tower of the village church has just tolled 2 o'clock in the noon, so there is plenty of time for the evening to fall. Yonder is the moon means moon is not visible yet, and night is far, so she can delay her visit a little. But she is not aware that this little delay will cause her a catastrophic tragedy to her life. Unfortunately, she gets late, and then she faces the problem. Student, ballad moves towards stanza 6, where poet says, at this father raised his hook and snapped a faggot band. He plied his work, and Lucy took the lantern in her hand. And this, the father raised his hook. Hook refers to sickle, which is a cropping tool used by farmers to cut crops. And snapped a faggot band refers to collection of sticks together and bind them with a rope. He plied his work shows his busyness with his work. Means he busy. Since Lucy's father is busy with his work, as he forecast of the storm that night, therefore he is conscious of winding up his work, so that the expected storm might not damage his crops, woods, or livestock, since throughout the year they have to depend upon this livestock and wood stuff. He has to manage with his task sooner than usual in order to minimize the financial loss the storm might cause. Therefore, the poet wants Lucy, the father wants Lucy to go, and Lucy now takes the lantern in her hand and departs from home obediently without hesitation. She does not feel scared to go to fetch her mom during this time of trouble. Students, now the ballad moves towards stanza number 7, and we come to know, not blither is the mountain row with many wanton straw. Her feet disperse the powdery snow that rises up like smoke. Students, blither refers to a joyful, row refers to a small species of deer, animal, and wanton means playful and purposeless strokes. The poet portrays a gloomy picture of the scene outside Lucy's home. He says due to this unexpected storm, no one could be spotted on the way of powdery snow. Lucy was all alone, even no happy or joyful animals could be seen. Perhaps sensing danger of the storm, every creature has gone into hideouts for safety. With childish and playful footstrokes, Lucy continued her journey, skipping, tripping, and enjoying her quick light steps on the snow, being unaware of what awaited her. She is happy, she is enjoying, and she is ready to fetch her mom. She faces the situation boldly, and she is not very much scared of the loneliness prevailing on moors on her way. She enjoys skipping and jumping on the powdery snow. Students, now ballad moves towards stanza 8. The storm came on before its time. The wandered up and down, and many a hill did Lucy climb, but never reached the town. Students, stanza 8 marks the real tragedy. Unfortunately, the expected storm arrives unexpectedly sooner. The storm is much earlier than its predicted time, and therefore sweet Lucy gets badly stuck. In the best of her spirits, she makes wild efforts, wandering and running up and down, climbing many hills in an attempt to be either back to her town or to any safe place or to be back to her home. But unfortunately, the luck did not favor sweet Lucy, and she never reached the town. Misfortune befell upon her, and she lost her way. So students, the story moves on, and we come to know in stanza 9, the wretched parents all that night went shouting far and wide, but there was neither sound nor sight to serve them for a guide. Students, wretched means heartbroken, sad. Stanza 9 indicates that Lucy, due to the storm, has not been able to manage to reach neither the town nor her home, but it seems as if her mother has somehow managed to reach. Since she is adult, so she has managed to reach home. The stanza also discusses the response of her parents when they come to know about Lucy's disappearance. Lucy's not returning home has hit them like a bolt of lightning. It's a very big shock indeed. In the best of their capacity, they did not leave any stone unturned to search her throughout that sorrowful night. But unfortunately, there was neither any sound nor any mark or sight of Lucy which could feed their hope to see their beloved child again. Now we see stanza 10. Students, the ballad moves on. The poet in stanza 10 says, at daybreak on a hill they stood that overlooked the moor, and hence they saw the wood a furlong from their door. Now it is obvious that the desperate parents of Lucy have been searching the entire night, ending their efforts in smoke, hid by the cascading laws, but in the glimpse of hope, they once again start their search hunt after the sun has risen and the storm has subsided. In an attempt to find a clue, they climbed on the high hill, searching every corner of the moor inside out, and from that high position they saw a bridge which was situated a little far away from their cottage. A distance of furlong refers to 1/4 part of the meter. Stanza 11. They wept and turning homeward cried, in heaven we all shall meet, when in the snow the mother spied the print of Lucy's feet. Now students, they wept means Lucy's parents wept. On not having their daughter found, they are shocked with the misery, with eyes wet and heart torn apart. Amidst this anguish, the mother happens to spot Lucy's footprint, where she has some hope that these footmarks of Lucy on snow might prove to be their union with their angel-like daughter. They might find their daughter through these footprints. Without wasting much time, they hurriedly kept following those footprints. With their emotional response to their irreparable loss, they console themselves by believing, in heaven we all shall meet. With sinking hearts and heavy eyelids, eventually they have to embrace the reality. In stanza 12 we see, then downwards from the steep hill's edge, they tracked the footmarks small, and through the broken hawthorn hedge and by the long stone. Students, hawthorn hedge refers to a shrub that is thick growing and thorny, and hill's edge refers to end of the hill. Struck by the sorrow, confusion, pain, and downheartedness, parents with some glimpse of hope continued their pursuit for Lucy. The poet mentions many places of the village or moor in the stanza, like Hill's Edge, Hawthorn Hedge, which refers to a small shrub plant, a long stone wall indicating their vibrant search. These all objects show that they saw them and their search was deep and thorough. They left almost no place where Lucy might have been. This is how their efforts were complete and deep and full of love for their daughter, with the expectation that their search might result into their union with Lucy Gray and they might somehow find her. The story moves to stanza 13, and then an open field they crossed. The marks were still the same. They tracked them on, nor ever lost, and to the bridge they came. Students, in stanza 13, the poet tells us that they are still carry on their efforts. Having no comfort and peace at heart, their pursuit for Lucy is quite thorough and profound. Following the same footprints on the snow, yet with some hope, they were impeccable in their effort with precision and utmost caution. They are very careful in their search. They continued their vigorous and determined attempt to search Lucy. By tracking and following the footsteps, small footsteps with best of their endeavors, they reached the bridge where they had some hope that Lucy might be somewhere around this place. The ballad moves to stanza 14. They followed from the snowy bank those footmarks one by one into the middle of plank, and further there was none. Students, as we know that Lucy's footprints have generated some hope in her parents' heart, that keeping the trail of footsteps, they kept looking for her, wandering in snowy valley, in the muddy moor, and finally into the middle of the wooden bridge. The blow hits them with a shaking grief when they found that no more footsteps, which indicated that Lucy, while trying to save herself and crossing the bridge, has fallen into the deep ditch. So then they have no option but to accept the acute and unending pain of Lucy's death. Their melancholy with distress is immeasurable, and the sadness is beyond their hearts can endure. But on the contrary, Lucy has become the permanent daughter of nature. Parents are very upset, parents are heartbroken, but it seems as if Lucy has found some kind of freedom and has become the permanent part of nature. Yet some maintain that to this day she is a living child, that you may see sweet Lucy Gray upon the lonesome wild. Students maintain in first line refers to believe, and wild in line 4 refers to uncultivated mountainous area where her cottage was. As Lucy was an apple of eye for everyone, so the loss of the sweet child of the nature is beyond any measure. Therefore, struck by her memories, people of the village believe that she is still alive in their hearts, and so is in the lonely moor at her cottage. Her presence in that moor is often felt by villagers with all its vigor and charm, as if her sweet smile is a fragrance of the air and her innocent beauty is reflected in the mountainous valley. So this is how she is reverberating and resonating in the valley. She is reflected through nature, adding to its charms forever. The last stanza of the poem, stanza number 16, over rough and smooth she trips along and never looks behind, and sings a solitary song that whistles in the vine. Students, not only Lucy is an unornamented incarnation of simplicity, but she has the beautiful melodious voice too. The tragedy of Lucy's death has caused anguish and despair in the village, but after her death, her memories are still reverberating and resonating in the valley. Out of their sentimental bond with her villagers, often have a vision of Lucy playing, tripping, and skipping on the snow. Therefore, the poet says, over rough smooth she trips along and never looks behind. Students, it is rightly remarked by John Keats, a thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases, it will never pass into nothingness. Therefore, Lucy's melodious songs whistle in the air and are still alive in the Mother Nature with their impression on the senses of people. Okay students, this is how we have completed our poem. Hope the video will help you prepare for exams. The expected questions from this poem in exams, usually students are required to narrate the incident in their own words. Usually they are asked about the tragedy of Lucy, what happened to her, what caused her death, how they feel about reading this poem. These are some of the usual questions an examiner might ask you. Other than these questions, students, you might be tested on MCQs, and MCQs can be framed from words, meanings or vocabulary, which I have already explained, and any element of language, any element of poetry can be asked in MCQs. This is how students revising this poem and reading it thoroughly over and over again will surely help you in your exams. I wish you good luck. Assalamu alaikum.